Hey everyone, I'm Rachel.
And I'm David.
We just got back from Tokyo Disney Resort, and we want to share some of the tips and tricks we found with you, as well as let you know what's different between the Japan and the US parks.
Let's go.
All right, so we have a lot of information to give you guys, but the most important thing is that you do need to prepare. I know that a lot of people like to go into vacations and kind of go with the flow and that sort of thing. There's nobody saying that you can't have some spontaneity and do some things that you don't plan on doing. But if you're going to have the best time at Tokyo Disney, you really need to know a little bit about what you're doing before you go into it.
Yeah, I think it's really important too is don't get too overwhelmed by all the information you're trying to take in. And the way you plan for this is significantly different than the way you would like a US park. When we first started, I was taking in too much information all at once, and this was several months out before we could even start doing anything about it. And it was overwhelming, but it's not that bad. So kind of take a breath and don't let it bother you too much.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Even doing some of the research ahead of time, you will actually find out that some of the things you found out are wrong or outdated because they are changing things a lot at this resort. So just between the time we went a couple of weeks ago and 2 days from now, they're actually changing a huge thing about how you access one of the parks. So don't get too overwhelmed with planning, but do some research ahead of time so that you're at least a little bit prepared for what you're going into.
It is worth the effort. Don't feel like you're wasting your time or anything, but just keep that in mind that preparation's important, but don't let it overwhelm you.
We have a few different categories that we're going to go through. The first category I want to talk about are hotels and vacation packages. Now, obviously, we're talking about Tokyo Disney Resort and the parks, but I felt like this was really important because our first really big tip, for me at least, is that I highly recommend doing a vacation package. You don't have to. You can buy a 1 day ticket or multiple day tickets to these parks, but we did the vacation package, and I feel like that put us on the right path because we were able to, one, know exactly what hotel we were going to be at, know that it was going to be easy to get to the parks from the hotel, and that we were probably going to have some cast members that spoke English, as well as you get some things pre-booked. So you know for sure you're going to get on certain attractions, or you know for sure you're going to get breakfast certain mornings or meet certain characters depending on which vacation package you buy.
Now, something to keep in mind with the vacation packages, though, is that they are looking at changing them. So the ones we did aren't necessarily available anymore. And I think that the vacation package is 100% worth it, not just because the price is a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, it saves you so many different headaches along the way. If you want to take advantage of the food that's involved, okay, you're going to have a reservation. You pick your time slot. You're going to know when you're going to be there. You know when you're selecting ride times, exactly when you need to be somewhere. And having that layout set up for you really sets you up for success, in my opinion. So knowing I have to be at this location at this time, and these are the gaps I'm trying to fill, really narrows down what you can do
Yeah.
just because of the wait times and stuff in the park. And knowing that kind of information, I think, is super important. I love the vacation package. I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah.
I don't think the price was unreasonable.
Agreed 100%. I think it was worth the cost. And since they are continuously changing, obviously look at the Tokyo Disney website for more detail about what's current when you're going to go. But you can book them 6 months in advance. And I would highly recommend you be online at whatever time it is in the US. That is the time that they go on sale there. For us, it was midnight because things do sell out. Rooms do sell out 6 months in advance.
Yeah, I mean, just to emphasize on that, it opened at midnight and we were still working on it at 2 a.m. Now, don't panic. Like, don't think like, oh my God, if I'm not the first three people in, I'm not going to get the vacation package. My trip's ruined. No, it doesn't necessarily work that way. You might have errors pop up on the screen. Everybody deals with that kind of stuff. It's not the best website, unfortunately. So don't panic if you don't get it right away. Just try a couple times and be flexible, in my opinion, in this, not in the sense of your dates or anything. Just understand you might not get the exact hotel room that you're looking for at the exact hotel you're looking for. I still think, regardless, it's worth going. I feel like all the hotels that are on the vacation package within the same vicinity, they're all going to be awesome. You're going to have an amazing time. If you have to settle for one that wasn't your first priority, don't let it ruin your trip. And these are highly competitive, but I've gone on several days after they've gone on sale and seen vacation packages still available. So don't freak out too much if your internet's crapping out or the website's not loading or your credit card's not taking. There's a bunch of things that's going to happen. Like, be prepared. You're going to run into some headaches like that. Don't freak out. Just stay focused and you're going to be able to get it and you're going to have a good time. So
If you choose not to do a vacation package, if you just want to maybe stay a night or two at a regular Disney hotel, those you cannot start booking until 4 months in advance. So that kind of gives you some information. A lot of the room types, the more in-demand room types probably will be sold out for the time you want to go because people with vacation packages book 6 months in advance. But a light at the end of the tunnel there is we actually decided very last minute, I think 2 weeks before our trip, to book an extra night at the Toy Story Hotel before our vacation package started, and it was available. So just know, even if you don't want to go in 6 months in advance and know that you're going to do this trip, you will still have options.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note. So we made that decision on a whim because, again, the information out there changes so much. And in our head, we were going to pick up our vacation package really early in the morning and we would have early entry into the park. But that wasn't the case. We found that out like shortly before our trip. And so we had the idea, okay, well, we know early entry comes with the Toy Story Hotel. And so we booked the night at the Toy Story Hotel. When we checked into the Toy Story Hotel the day before our vacation package officially started, we went and picked up our vacation package. That gave us early entry into Disneyland Park. But now there are some vacation packages that include a night before your vacation package starts. So essentially what we did, but built into the vacation package. It's constantly changing, unfortunately. So I think it's really important to take the time and read the site. The site does have pretty good documentation, I think. So unfortunately, it's a long read, but it's going to have all the information you're actually looking for. So just keep that in mind.
So from here on out, we're actually not going to talk about vacation packages. We're going to talk about just normal things that should not change that much between now and whenever you end up going. So everything else should be pretty similar to what you'll experience. So if you do stay at a Disney hotel without a vacation package, just should be aware this is a big difference from the US. You can't actually go in some of the hotels unless you're staying at the hotel, or you might be able to have a dining reservation at a restaurant in that hotel, and that's the only way you can enter. You have to show proof that you are staying at or have a reservation at a certain hotel to go in it.
This applies to things like food orders too. So even guests won't be able to visit essentially.
Yeah. It has to be the person on the reservation, or then you have to show a room key.
Yeah, room keys.
There is a cast member at every walking path up to these hotels to verify that people are supposed to be there.
Walking and driving paths.
Yeah, and it can be an inconvenience, but it's also really a perk in some ways because these hotels are not crowded at all.
Yeah, that was totally empty. It was awesome.
And it's very peaceful and relaxing. But just be aware of that. And then some hotels, you can't even make a dining reservation for their restaurant unless you are staying there, like the Fantasy Springs Hotel.
That was shocking. Yeah, I was shocked by that.
Yeah, you can only make a restaurant reservation if you're actively staying there. So just be aware that you may not get to visit all of these hotels. I know a lot of people in Disney World do resort hopping.
Yeah.
That's not
really a thing here, yeah.
Also about hotels, you'll likely only have twin beds in your rooms. So don't count on sleeping in the same bed as your partner. Most of them have either 3 or 4 twin beds in the rooms, and they're actually pretty large twin. I felt like they were a decent size.
Yeah, they were a good size, but it was weird. Families are coming to Tokyo Disney, and then the parents sleep in different beds.
And then also, if you see anything in wrapped plastic in your room, so like slippers or cups or toiletry items, take them. Yeah. They are free.
Yeah, they expect you to take them.
Yeah, they expect you to take them. Now, if you see pajamas in there, you don't want to take those. You are welcome to wear them, but they are not wrapped in plastic. They are not brand new. They've been washed, but do not take those. They will charge you for those. Just anything that's in wrapped plastic, you're welcome to take. And they are really cute. They're themed to the hotel that you're in.
Yeah, and that's like kind of a really cheap way to get souvenirs.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to bring up about hotels, every hotel has its own convenience store or konbini. That is really useful because they're usually open from a couple hours before the park opens till a couple hours after the park closes. So you can pop in there and get some food before or after a park day, and it's cheap.
Yeah.
Like this food is a lot cheaper.
It wasn't marked up or at all, really.
So it was really nice to be able to just kind of go in there and grab a snack after we came back from the parks exhausted and just kind of go crash in our room.
Well, I think it's really important too because their parks close significantly earlier than ours here in the States. So maybe you do normally eat like a late dinner at Disneyland or Disney World, and this gives you an opportunity to have like late night snacks and stuff. And I think it is important to mention that when you go to these hotels, they're themed so well that you're going to want to spend a little bit of time there. I know it's hard to want to do stuff after you've traveled so far, But I think you check in, maybe you just traveled that day and you're checking in. I still think it's worth powering through and trying to get some cute pictures or footage of these hotels because they genuinely are really gorgeous and they're kept up so well. The paint job's all super fresh. It just feels so special that I think it's worth it, even if you're really tired, to kind of, take the extra step and get a couple pictures.
All right, so the next category of information is for pre-park entrance. So this is like anything you need to know before you're actually in the gates. There is a monorail. That is one really key thing. Obviously, the parks in the US have modes of transportation to the different parks or around them, but there's only one here, and it is the monorail, and it is not free.
Yeah.
That's the big key point. It costs about $2 to $3 per ride, or you can get a day or 2 or 3 day passes for cheaper, but it is a really good method of transportation. It's really cheap still, and it's really cute.
Yeah, and something I want to mention, we whiffed on this the first time. So we didn't realize the kiosk you select determines what the art is going to be on your ticket. So take a look at that.
Yes.
We bought tickets, realized,
They had Minnie on them. They were very cute.
yeah, we bought the first one in the row was Minnie Mouse, and I'm like, oh, awesome, cool, we got a Minnie Mouse. I thought it was randomized. Then I realized, oh, Rachel, that one has Rapunzel on it. Now, another thing I want to mention about the monorail in particular is when you're going to Tokyo, you have this image in your head of how insane the subway system and train systems get there. But here, it didn't feel that ridiculous. We were going early enough and late enough that it didn't really get really super crowded or anything. So there weren't like long lines at the kiosks. I know they can get really long, and I can't emphasize enough, just put your patient pants on. The monorail runs pretty quick, so it's okay if you need to stand for a few minutes while on the trains. Don't let the Tokyo subway system or train system impact what your monorail expectations are. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, but to go along with that, you should still obey the same social and cultural norms that you would on the Tokyo subway. So a lot of people are not talking, not taking video of each other, not eating and drinking. These are all things that are pretty common on like the US subs and metros, but really in Japan, transportation is the time to be quiet and to be respectful of others. So just make sure that you're kind of paying attention to those social cues and not disturbing those around you.
Right.
So rope dropping. Obviously, we love to rope drop. We do it pretty much every time we go to any park. But if you are going to rope drop these parks, it is not enough to be there a half hour before they open. If you are not staying at a Disney hotel, you need to probably get there about 2 hours before the park opens. Even if you are staying at a Disney hotel and get an early entry, which we'll talk about in a little while, you need to get there probably even an hour plus still ahead of time.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough, the Japanese people's willingness to wait in lines is no joke. Like,
It's true.
they are willing to get to rope drop and they're going to do it hours ahead of time. This is what they've come to do.
And they've brought blankets to sit on or things to sit
seat
on and
cushions,
umbrellas and maybe even seats. Like they are, and they have their breakfast they bought and they're brought with them. Like they know they're going to be there for a while and they are prepared.
Yeah, 100%. And just to keep in mind also, they don't really have an issue with someone leaving the line and then coming back. Like if you have a party member staying there, like if you're in line early and someone really needs to go to the bathroom or you have an emergency or whatever, just leave somebody in line, leave and come back, and no one's gonna have an issue with that. We saw multiple people doing that. No one's like frustrated with each other. Everybody seems really happy at these rope drops. I can't emphasize enough, the lines are no joke at these parks. It is a legitimate thing you got to kind of keep in mind throughout the entire day, and it starts with rope drop for sure.
Yeah. So I mentioned that some people bring seats. That's another thing. In the US parks, you cannot bring even like collapsible seats or anything like that. You can bring them here.
Yeah.
And I would highly suggest it if you have one and can travel with it, or if you want to buy one while you're in Japan, just for when you're in Japan and then like recycle it or whatever. If you are planning on waiting in standby lines or trying to camp out for a spot in a parade or a show, I would highly recommend bringing a seat.
I think that's really smart because especially if you're doing a longer trip, the 3 days is a lot by itself just because the scale of these parks and the amount of walking you're going to be doing. I've seen like the collapsible stools that are built into canes be taken away at Disneyland, California. Here I saw multiple people walking around with them. It doesn't seem like it was an issue. If you've always wanted to have some kind of seat in lines, which I've actually thought about multiple times with my guy friends, we all have foot issues and we're like, oh man, this is brutal. Especially the lines that don't seem to move too much if you're just standing still. God, like having a stool would have been pretty awesome. And these are very, very small. They're very compact stools. So it's not like they're carrying around like a kitchen stool with
Or like a
drop in
camping
front.
chair. Like
Yeah, it's not
that's
like a camping chair.
Don't bring those.
Yeah, it's very, very small. I mostly saw it at rope drop, but people were using them in some queues because you got to keep in mind the 300-minute queues.
It's legitimately 300.
They're 300 minutes, and these people they're just sitting on their stools, and it's like, okay, that's smart. I think it's worth considering, especially if you have issues with your legs or your feet or anything like that.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention about pre-park entrance is the security scanners. So in Disneyland, California, we are still having people go through our bag pocket by pocket, and it takes forever.
Yeah.
And then you go through a metal detector. In Disney World, some of the parks have these faster security scanners that you just walk through. That is more akin to what they do at Tokyo Disney. So they do have the faster security scanners where you go walk through one person at a time. If something gets flagged or if you have a stroller, they do send you over to an actual metal detector. Otherwise, they'll send you right through. So that was really nice and expedites the process. But that does mean like when the monorail gets off and there's hundreds of people getting off at the same time, there's going to be lots of people funneling through pretty quickly into the rope drop area.
Yeah, and one more thing about the rope drop area and the lines in general is I would scope out which lines look the smallest. If you get there and it looks like there's an insane number of people, don't panic. Don't freak out right away. Just kind of evaluate your situation.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into something called Happy Entry. So Happy Entry is their version of an early entry, and it is only for people staying at Disney hotels. So you don't have to have a vacation package. You just have to be staying at the hotel.
Right.
And you can get it for different parks depending on which hotel you're staying at. That is continuously changing
That
as
is
well.
changing. So make sure you look
Yeah.
up which hotels get early entry to which parks.
And the timing of it is always changing. That was one thing I tried to find online before we went. Exactly when will we be let into the park? When should we show up for rope drop? These things. You will not know until you check into your hotel. At that point, they will give you a paper voucher that will say happy entry for this date.
Yep.
And they will give you however many people are booked in your party. So if you have 4 people with you and you only put 3 people in your reservation, that is a problem. And you need to fix that before you go. And so they'll give you the paper pass. It says the date. It says what time and what park.
It's an exact time and what park.
Yeah. The parks say online they open at 9 a.m. They've said that for years. But I can tell you for Tokyo Disneyland, we did get let in. It's only a 15-minute happy entry. And that's pretty much standard across the board.
Which is significantly different from the U.S.
Yes.
parks, I want to mention.
Yes, so different. So it's 15 minutes early, and we did get let in at about 8:45 at Tokyo Disneyland. So that was right on time. But when we stayed at Fantasy Springs Hotel, we actually got in at about 8:30. So that was a half hour early. But I believe the general population also got let in at like 8:45.
Right.
So you're still only getting 15-minute head start, but don't go by exactly what time the app or online says the park is going to open. You'll get your happy entry ticket when you get to your hotel and you can go.
Then you have a little more information. So once you do enter the parks early, you have your 15-minute advantage. So you're probably wondering what is the best way to use those 15 minutes. Now, this for me kind of depends on where you're coming in. If you're coming in from the main entrance, I would kind of prioritize, Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's kind of the middle of the park. There's going to be people from Fantasy Springs also headed that direction. And I think that ride gets an insane wait.
Yeah.
So
it's usually over 200 minutes.
Yeah. And if you're coming from the United States, that's a ride we don't have. It's a thrill ride also. So if this gets an insane wait, it's a unique experience only to this park. I think that's worth doing the rope drop from the main entrance. Now, if you really, really, really want to, maybe you consider doing Soarin', but honestly, the ride experience is the exact same. The only thing that's different is the queue. And, well, it's not the exact same because you do finish in Tokyo Disney, which is cool, but I don't think that's worth using your 15 minutes for. I would go and knock out Journey, and hopefully you get some fast passes throughout the day for Journey because I think it's worth riding multiple times. Otherwise, I would head, even if you're coming from the front entrance, I would consider heading to Fantasy Springs now that they're opening those queues to everybody. But keep in mind, you're going to lose to the Fantasy Springs people that are entering the park early also. So now from the Fantasy Springs perspective, if you're entering the park 15 minutes early, I would just go ahead and get in line for...
Just do all those Fantasy Springs.
Yeah, and start with Anna and Elsa's because that's going to have the most ridiculous wait, and it's totally worth waiting for. It's even if everybody And don't be discouraged by the number of people going to the same thing you're going to. Keep in mind these queues are made to hold 300 plus minutes of people. So even though you see a ton of people going, the operations are fast enough that you're going to get on that ride before the park officially opens.
Yeah,
So
these vehicles are large. They built them with good capacity.
oh yeah,
So-
and the cast members are running through it. So I would just do Anna and Elsa's first thing, and then do Rapunzel's. And as you're going through these things, sorry, I forgot to mention, even if you're coming in from the front entrance or Fantasy Springs, you're gonna want to start booking your fast passes right away, because that's the advantage you really get. Is these fast passes can and do and will probably sell out while you're there. Even the paid ones eventually sell out. So get your standby passes, get your show attractions. We're gonna get into more into fast passes later.
Yeah, I think that's like the key difference. Like 15 minutes as compared to either a half hour or an hour at US parks is not much time.
It's really not,
And
and you
so-
notice it too when you're
Yeah.
actively there. It does not feel like you had an advantage, but honestly, you did.
You do. And I think that the biggest advantage comes from you'll probably get one queue before everybody else gets in the park, and then you'll get to at least book some of your fast pass, and then those are the two perks that you really do get.
Agreed. Yeah.
The next thing I want to talk about is the actual park atmosphere and experience. So the overall vibes of these two parks. The first thing is the same kind of with Japan as a whole. It's super, super clean.
Yeah.
The cast members in US parks do a great job trying to keep everything clean. They really do. I see people sweeping all the time, but everybody's always dropping popcorn, it seems like.
Yeah.
And there are leaves and things like that. These parks are pristine.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. I think we didn't see any popcorn on the ground until maybe like the last day.
Yeah.
And then the only reason I saw it on the ground was because somebody was actively sitting there eating it and dropped some.
And they still look like they felt bad that it had happened.
Yeah. So these parks are so clean, and that goes for one, the cast members just being amazing and doing a really good job cleaning things up. But I also think it is a cultural thing.
That's what I was going to say.
The Japanese people take a lot of pride in their country and in taking care of things and making sure that they're not littering.
The only thing we can really compare it to is the U.S. parks. And the U.S. parks take on a lot more people than the Japanese parks do, so that's something to keep in mind. But you do notice some things like maybe there's some wear and tear on a lamp fixture or something at Disneyland, California. Don't get me wrong, the California people work insanely hard, and it's really, really hard. At the Japan parks, cast members do such a good job. The paint everywhere is like beautiful. It's perfect. Everything's exactly how it's supposed to be. It smells fresh.
We smelled the most flowers I think I've ever smelled when I wasn't like walking through a garden.
Yeah, it was like walking through a garden.
It
was. it was so interesting. Yeah, just so many fresh smells, like fresh flowers. And if you are a stickler for the upkeep of a park, there is no better. These are the two parks that have mastered this craft, and it shows. It's gorgeous. They take pride in it.
One of the key difference between the US parks and these parks in Japan are that we did not see very many strollers or wheelchairs. We saw more strollers than we saw wheelchairs.
I saw one wheelchair.
Yeah, there's not a lot of electric scooters and things like that. I know, especially in California right now, I feel like every time we go to Disneyland, there's a lot of those rentable electric scooters.
Yep.
But I didn't see any of those.
Yeah.
I saw one manual wheelchair, like you said. And we want the parks to be accessible for everybody.
Right. And I think these parks actually do a really
They
good
do-
job of that.
Yeah, they do a really good job of it. The hotels on the Disney property do a really good job of that. But there just seems to not be as many people needing those devices in these parks. So just kind of be aware if you do need to take one with you or use one while you're at these parks, they may be a little harder to get a hold of, or you may have some trouble navigating certain areas just because they're not used to having a lot of people with those devices. And another point I want to make, which is kind of a funny point, but I know in the US parks, and I'm very guilty of this, I do it every time we go, a lot of people wear athleisure to these parks, or you wear a t-shirt and jeans or a t-shirt and leggings. These parks, the girls specifically dress to the nines.
Yeah, they do.
They are wearing mini skirts. They are wearing full faces of makeup. They have their hair perfectly done. They have combs. They're checking their hair and their makeup constantly because they're taking a lot of photos. And there's no judgment here. That's just how they want to enjoy the parks. And that's great.
Yeah.
But if you do wear athleisure, you might feel like you're sticking out a little bit.
I felt, I'll say multiple times, I felt like a slob, even though I wasn't like horribly dressed.
You were wearing a t-shirt and jeans.
I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and I was like, whoa, I'm really underdressed here. Something to keep in mind is the locals are looking to go and take like really nice pictures and have really nice days out. A lot of the visitors are looking to get like really nice pictures with their boyfriends and girlfriends or their moms and dads and families and stuff.
Or characters.
Or
Character lines are really, really long.
The character lines are no joke. People will rope drop characters, and I think it's super cute watching them. They're all trying on different ears, and you'll have like people swapping ears and stuff because they don't know which ones they like better, and they're
Or
swapping
like
with their
whole
friends.
groups of friends match.
Yeah, they
like,
all met. You'll see
yeah,
groups of
it's
people
really
matching.
cute.
It's really cute. So one of the big things with these parks too that we really can't emphasize enough on the YouTube videos is just how big everything is. I looked at the map for these two parks and I was like, okay, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. It's not gonna be anything I haven't done before. But when you're physically there, it feels like everything is so much bigger and so much further from each other, and it's crazy the amount of walking you're going to do on this trip. But just like experiencing the castle for the first time, I don't know what the heights or scales of anything are, but it felt so much bigger. It felt like so I don't know how to like describe
Well,
it, but
it's like Disneyland was built in a time where roads were smaller and they
yeah,
didn't have as much land, so they kind of did what they could with what they had.
true.
This is like if Walt got to build Disneyland, but in today's proportions.
Yeah.
Like everything is spread out and it's beautiful and there's greenery and gardens everywhere, but that means more steps for you walking around those
Right.
things.
Everything is like the sight lines are so well thought out. No matter where you're standing in the park, you can't see outside of the park in the sense that you're going to be disassociated from the Disney universe. The only thing that really kind of does that is the airplanes coming in and out,
Yeah.
which was weird. But other than that, like it feels like you're in a bubble and it's the Disney bubble. And the other big thing I wanted to mention was if you see something, you can go up to those items. In Tokyo Disney Sea specifically, the first time I saw the ship, I was like, okay, that's cool. There's a pirate ship in the harbor. That's a nice little touch. And then I realized, oh, there's people on that ship, and they're playing with the cannons. Oh, the cannons shoot. That's cool. So everything is
And
like,
then there's a different pirate ship.
and then there's a different pirate ship in
And-
Fantasy Springs.
Yeah, and then there's a lighthouse that you can go and walk
Yeah.
up to.
And then there's a cruise ship like in dock, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. People are on that thing, and there's a restaurant in there. And but knowing that you can go into these locations and touch things and do things and see things, and it's just I can't emphasize enough just how interesting that is and how everything has perpetual motion to it. Like inside the volcano, there's a vehicle sticking out of it, and it has motion to it. It's built into it. You have the Nautilus that kind of goes that's sitting in the water in there, and there's just so much going on. And I just think it's so cool. Everything was made to be accessible to the visitor, which I just don't think you can do that. Their budget had to have been why this is physically possible, and I think that's just really really cool. When people say that these are the parks that Imagineers would build if they had an unlimited budget, I kind of agree with that. It really feels like the quality and the imagination is really there, and
Oh,
it's really cool.
I 100% agree with that. And the last thing just about the overall park experience, and David kind of already alluded to it, but the cast members.
Mhm.
You'll hear us say this so many times.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't repeat it
but
enough. Though.
these are the best cast members we have ever experienced. And I'm getting emotional. I'm just saying that sentence. I don't know why. They are just the nicest people I think I've ever met in my life. And they all seem so happy to be there and to be helping you. Even when there's a language barrier, they are so sweet and so kind, and the smiles and the joy that exudes from all of them. Like, it made me feel like my first time at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Because my first time at Disneyland was our honeymoon. I actually had just gone through chemotherapy. So we were treated very special that trip, I felt like. And I'm not the kind of person that needs a lot of attention at the parks or needs to be treated special, but this just gave me that same warm fuzzy. But they were treating everyone that way.
Yeah.
It's not like I was special. They were treating every person with love and care and kindness and happiness. And yeah, it was just a joy to be around these cast members.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we can't emphasize it enough, and we can't really relay it properly.
Yeah.
Like honestly, there's so much love when you're talking to these people. They're so interested in you. There's a genuine interest in you, which is so interesting. It's so different. And I think I mentioned it to you. Like I wish that Walt Disney could see these cast members in action because this is what I envisioned. His vision probably was.
Yeah.
They're so bright and beautiful and sweet and kind, and I don't know. It's just it legitimately felt different. And walking down Main Street with all of them, not just waving at us, but like having like the biggest authentic smile on their faces really felt special. I can understand why it's emotional because thinking about it again, it's one of the reasons we really want to go back.
All right. So the next area we're going to talk about are rides. So the overall experience and atmosphere. One thing that really kind of surprised me on the first day is that the entrance to most rides are not just single file lines or even 2x2 lines. They're giant funnels. Everybody just kind of scoots in and scoots in and scoots in, and you're in this big clump of people, and then slowly it whittles you down until you're in a single file line. That's very different from how the US parks operate. I feel like if you did that in some of the queues in the US parks, people would start a fight
Yeah.
or something like that. But I think it's a cultural norm, like even on the trains and things, we've noticed people are very used to being close together, and the cast members are all telling you, move up, move up, move up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they get through people so fast in these lines.
But yeah, that was a little disorienting at first. Like I felt rude, like moving past people I know were physically in the line before me, but the cast members are saying, no, you got to move up, you got to move up. And it's not because they're trying to cram people into certain areas. It's just like, dude, there's a bunch of space over here, get over there. And they're not rude about it, obviously, but it's totally different.
Yeah, and another thing is that we found the posted wait times to be pretty accurate. Whereas in the US parks, I do feel like they overinflate the wait times a little bit, but this was pretty darn accurate.
And what was interesting about it to me was I never saw them giving out the little lanyards that help them like determine the wait times. So they must have some kind of digital system, or they know people are at this point within the switchbacks. So we know by historical data that the line is technically this wait time.
So one of my favorite things in this category is that they actually ask you, the cast members do, to take your ears and hats off for rides and shows.
Yeah.
This is a huge pet peeve of both of ours. If you're in the parks, PSA moment. If you're in the parks and you're going on a ride and you're not in the back row or you're seeing a show, you need to take your ears or your hat off.
Yeah.
Like there could be a child behind you that won't be able to see, or even an adult that won't be able to see because you're wearing your ears on It's a Small World. Please just be nice and take your ears or hat off.
And I thought that was really cool. I think one of the first times we saw them do that, I went, oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Maybe it was just this cast.
Yeah, we
member
didn't think
doing
it was going to be every time, but
Yeah.
it was
No,
every
it's every
time.
time. Yeah. And like they're super nice about it. They go, like,
Yeah, they like touch their head. But even in the shows we went to, people were actively taking them off and leaving them off the entire show. And I really, really appreciated that. I think that makes the experience better for everybody. Yeah, and going along with the team members asking you to take things off, and this is something we actually notice if you ride the subway or anything in Tokyo as well, they will ask you in the queues to put your backpack on the front.
oh, yeah.
Also, in any crowded area you might go into, you'll see people with it on the front instead of the back. And that's just, I mean, it's common sense that you'll be able to keep better track of it. You won't be hitting people on accident with it if it's on the front of you. And also you won't be scratching up any items in the queue that the Imagineers worked really hard to make. So just be aware that if you have a backpack, they'll probably ask you to put it on the front. And the last thing I want to bring up in this category is something that's also kind of a cultural norm. When you are getting into a ride vehicle that you're stepping down into, like maybe a boat, like Pirates of the Caribbean, things something like that, do not step on the seat. Step directly down into the floor if you are able. Obviously, if you're not able physically to do that, you have to do what you have to do. But we noticed, whereas in the US parks, everybody steps on the seat, nobody was stepping on the seat. Everybody steps, uses the handrail and then steps
and does
down.
the big step down into it, which may sound really weird in a way because the seats kind of look like steps, honestly, on some of these rides. But yes, they will, even the shorter people step all the way down to the floor of the ride vehicle. But that's what everybody does. They don't step on it getting out either. It's just kind of a respect thing. They don't want you to have to sit where people have been stepping with their gross shoes all day. And I actually think that's pretty nice. After realizing that's what they were doing, the seats look like pristine.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized it before that point. So I do want to mention, and we've mentioned it before, but the lines are no joke. But no, they will wait in those lines, and like we mentioned, the lines are accurate. The wait times are accurate, and so don't kind of think, oh, I'm looking at the queue, and yeah, it looks long, but it doesn't look like 300 minutes long. I'm just going to get in it. A lot of it might be hidden from the viewer, so they will cut these lines off towards the end of the day if they know that there's not going to be enough time until the park closes, that they're going to get through all the people. They're going to turn people away. So it's not like the U.S. parks where if you're in line at the end of the day and the park closes, you're going to get to ride the ride. That doesn't exist here. I would rather just straight up walk around the volcano or the harbor for the same amount of time than I would waiting 300 minutes to ride Toy Story Mania or Soarin' or any rides we have at home.
Yeah. When you're in these parks with so many special things that you don't have, it doesn't make a lot of sense to us to do that. Well, and the lines for the rides actually leads me into our next category, which is merchandise and food.
Oh, yeah.
So on the subject of lines, people will wait in ridiculously long lines for specifically popcorn and churros. They do have a lot of different popcorn varieties, very special ones like curry and roast beef, but they also have a lot of different varieties of churros. And these lines are no joke. I mean, I don't think they're 300-minute long.
No, not quite.
But they're 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, depending on which item you want. And people are just happy to do that. And like, that's how they want to spend their day. They want to go and they want to try all the different kinds of popcorn. Yeah. They want to try all the different kinds of churros.
Well, no joke, like, to emphasize that is, we talked about our early entry already. We saw people use their early entry go and get churros.
Yeah.
Because they knew the line for that was going to be nuts later. And they were on their way to something else. But they got in line for churros. There's 4 people in line. They got their churros. Their 15 minutes are up, essentially. I don't think I've, like, especially in recent years at the U.S. parks, I don't wait. I just mobile order everything.
And they do have mobile order. Yeah. That's the saving grace.
That's what's crazy to me. Yeah.
Obviously, like popcorn carts and churro carts don't have that. If it's still important to you to try some of these different varieties of things that we don't necessarily have in the U.S. parks, just know that you could probably time them and not just force yourself to get in line at lunchtime, which is when everybody is going to be in line.
Yeah. And to add on to the food bit a little bit, I think that it's worth noting that when I was doing all my research, everyone kept talking about just how incredible the food was at these parks. And in my opinion, I didn't really get that. I thought it was just kind of okay or mediocre.
There were a couple standout items.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's some really unique things for sure, and things you're not going to find at literally any other theme park in the entire world. And I think that's really, really cool, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was delicious in any sense. So don't feel like you're really, really missing out by not trying certain things. I do think, it's important to kind of step out of your comfort zone and try some new things. But if you're just really, really adverse to that, you're going to find things that you're willing to eat, but don't feel like it's going to be, oh, this is some of the best food I've ever had. It's just not the case. And maybe that, that's my Americanized taste buds or whatever. It's just okay. Like, I'm not offended enough or I'm like, I couldn't find anything to eat. I'm never going back there. No, obviously I want to go back and I want to try new things and I want to try even more stuff. And their taste buds are different there. What they use in their food is different there. What seasonings they use is totally different. So you're going to find things you're okay with, but it's just going to be whatever.
Well,
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And know that customization is not really a thing
that
you
good
can
point,
do
yeah.
as well. Especially mobile order is the same in the US for most places. Some places you can customize like a burger or something like that, but a lot of places you can't. That's the same. But yeah, even if you order in person, the customization's not really going to be a thing, or there might be a language barrier trying to do that. So just keep in mind, like for me being a pickier eater, it was somewhat hard to find things that I really enjoyed and could get without having to try to make any modifications to.
I think kind of getting familiar with the mobile order system is super important at this park, in my opinion, because again, we're looking to optimize our time at these parks. Multiple times throughout this trip, we got hungry and we just checked the mobile order times and they were 5 to 10 minutes out and we just booked it right there. And as we were walking up to it, by the time we got there, it was time to pick it up. And when we got there, there's people standing in line. And I'm like, you guys have the mobile app. I know you do. Just mobile order this. It doesn't cost anything extra. So familiarizing yourself with that process, if you've ever done it at the United States parks, it's basically the same thing.
The ordering process is the same, the check-in process is the same, but it actually shows you how many parties are in front of you.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So you kind of know how long you have until your food's going to be ready. Yeah. And then it gives you a little map of what the check-in or the mobile pickup counter looks like inside the restaurant. It tells you to go to counter 2. You know exactly where counter 2 is. It's really nice.
Yeah, so just get familiar with that and kind of keep an eye on times for orders. And especially if you're looking for a particular restaurant that has a theme that you care about. Like for us, going to the Snuggly Duckling was very, very important. So throughout the day, we were watching the pickup times. You could select a pickup time way later in the day. So we knew that the last thing we wanted to do on one of our days was to get at the Snuggly Duckling, just get some cupcakes, and to go back to the room. And so that was what we did. We booked like here's
In the
three.
morning. We
We
booked it in
booked
the
it in the
morning
morning
for
for
the evening.
8:45 p.m.
And it's really important to note too, I found this out the hard way. I didn't see this in any other blog. If you order way ahead of time, you cannot edit your order until about an hour before the order pickup window. So just know that I placed an order. Oh, I forgot to get an extra cupcake.
Yeah.
Because somebody said they wanted an extra cupcake. You can't do it until about an hour before, but it will then let you go in and either edit the order, cancel the order, or even change the time of the order about an hour away. Well, and one other thing about mobile order is that some restaurants within Disney Sea specifically, you have to show proof of purchase to be able to go
Yeah,
inside
you
of the
physically
restaurant.
can't even go into it.
Or you have to be ordering, but then you have to wait in that
Then
long
you're
line like we talked about. So for instance, a Snuggly Duckling, they won't even let you inside unless you have proof of a mobile order and that your mobile order is ready to pick up. They won't even let you go in and order. So if you love Rapunzel like I do and you really want to go in and see the restaurant, you need to make sure that you do that mobile order. Or if you have a vacation package and you have a drink ticket, they will let you show your drink ticket to go in
Yeah,
there.
we did that a couple of times too. If you do the vacation package and you have the drink ticket, you can just say, "I'm going to get a drink," and they're like, "Okay, come on."
Alongside that, because some restaurants you do have to show proof of purchase in, and that we never had an issue finding a seat when you have to show proof of purchase because they're only letting as many people in as
Oh
they're
yeah.
selling. But for those restaurants where you do not have to show proof of purchase, finding a seat to eat at was pretty hard, and that's because everyone reserves tables. And when I say they reserve tables, they put like one water bottle on a table and that's their table. Or
Yeah.
they put a hair clip on the table and that is their table. And they are gone. Like there were instances where we had a tray full of food. We were walking around trying to find a table. We finally found one and a table beside us had no one at it, just reserved. But we were done eating and gone before we even saw anybody come to get
Yeah,
that table.
I couldn't believe it when this park is so thought out too. I haven't really mentioned it, but like there's like so many benches everywhere. There's like so many different places to sit. But then you get into the restaurants and it's kind of limited seating. It's
Yeah,
not
they put more. I feel like they have more bench seating than they do restaurant seating in some spots.
honestly, yeah.
And usually in the U.S. parks, when I see people reserving tables, they leave one party member there,
Yeah.
or they put actual stuff there. And so, yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. Like if you do have a mobile order and you can go in the restaurant early, I would go in the restaurant
Yeah,
early.
I would
try to
take
find a
advantage of
table.
the system. I would just play the game. Hopefully, you have somebody with you, and you leave one person.
Yeah, and the restaurants being crowded kind of leads into the next point, which is about the merchandise stores being also super crowded. We were there it was a fairly crowded time, I think, but some stores were really empty and other stores were insane, like to the point where I didn't even want to be in them, which is saying a lot because the merchandise at these parks is like the cutest
That's
stuff.
incredible.
I bought so much more at these parks than I've ever bought at a Disney park in my life, and I honestly could have bought more. But these stores get so crowded, and people, along with their days where they're taking pictures, they're meeting characters, they want to get these souvenirs because they honestly are cheaper than at the US parks.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper, and I think part of that is certain stores will have exclusive merchandise at that location. Some of these places get ridiculously busy just for that reason alone, and sometimes they're busy because they have like a gotcha machine at the front of the store, and those have exclusive items in them too, and so people line up to use the capsule machines. So shops get and I feel like these shops do have like a lot of shelves and stuff in them too.
Yeah, well, and they have a lot of small items, and I
Yeah, it's
think
a lot of small
that's the
items.
difference. Like, what a really big trend in Japan is to have keychains. As you can see, we actually have David's wearing one here that we got on our trip. But there's a lot of little like small items, small keychains, like hundreds and hundreds, and you can. I mean, it takes a lot of time to look through each of those, and then you have 50 people all wanting to look at them at the same time. It gets really crowded and you're like trying to bob and weave in between people and people have bags and people have friends they're trying to talk to. It gets really hectic just in the shops in general. So
Yeah, I think if you're one of those people that gets like social anxiety from having too many people around you, it might be worth just doing online orders.
yeah.
Don't spend time in the
Yeah,
shops.
or go right before park close because I do
Oh
think
yeah, yeah, that
it
was
calms down. I know the Fantasy Springs shop. We went during the day, the middle of the day one day, and it was absolutely insane. The saving grace was there was not a line to check out, which I was flabbergasted by because the store was so busy. But Then we went back at the end of the night one night, and it was really calm.
Yeah, I wanted to mention when we checked out that one time, I was like looking around. I was like, did we cut people in
Yeah.
line? Like, but they just blast through people. In general, the operations at the park are actually really, really good.
All right, so the last category I think we have some really important information to give you on is the FastPass system. We all know FastPass is a really old name for it. There's Lightning Lane now in the US parks, and this has even different names. And when I say names, that's because there are multiple different kinds of FastPasses, people. So this was one of the key things that we did a lot of research on before we went, and it's really key for you to understand because some of them are paid and some of them aren't. So you don't have to shell out extra money to do some of these things, and we're going to kind of tell you what that means.
Well, just to go a little bit into that, I grew up calling them fast passes. I will always call them fast passes. It is essentially,
That's what they are.
well, that's what they are. It's a pass to get through the line faster. So if I refer to something as a fast pass, it's the same as any other system. It involves skipping the line in some capacity, and we're gonna get into a little more detail here.
There are 4 different passes. You can have one of each of them at the same time. When you get into the park first thing, you can reserve each of these 4 kinds
Right off the rip.
right off the bat. The first one is the 40th anniversary pass. And this is a funny name because the 40th anniversary was in 2023 and it is now 2025 and it's still called this. So we don't know if they'll change the name at some point to something different, but it's still called the 40th anniversary pass. And this one is free to everyone. So this is not something you have to pay for, but you do have to book it via the app. And there are only certain rides that are included in this one. So these are not going to be your main e-ticket attractions like Journey to the Center of the Earth or even the Fantasy Springs rides at this time.
Yeah, I would argue that there are some e-ticket attractions on it, but it's not
true.
the big boys.
The time slots for these do sell out quicker than any of the others,
Very,
and
very
that's
quick.
because it's free to everyone. This 40th anniversary pass is a good use of one of your early entry time. So the next one is the Premier Pass. This is the paid Lightning Lane, for lack of better word, and the price does vary by ride. These do sell out a little bit slower for the majority of the rides, but some of them they do sell out fairly early, and then also this Frozen Adventure.
Pretty much all the Fantasy Springs ones
will sell out pretty fast. The prices were pretty comparable to what the US paid fast passes are per person as well. You can book one of those at a time. So that is a little bit different than the US parks. The US parks, if you want to book multiple paid Lightning Lanes first thing in the morning, you can do that and select your time slot. But this, you can only book one at a time. What is different about it also is that you can do the same ride multiple times. Yeah. So you could pay for Frozen, do it. If it's still available after you do it, you could buy it again.
Yeah. Whereas in the US parks, if you buy Rise of the Resistance, you're riding it one time, and that's it for the day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can go wait and stand by, but in terms of the Fast Pass. So going forward, I'll refer to this as the paid Fast Pass.
The next one is the Standby Pass. So this one is also free to everyone, but is kind of going away a little bit with the changes that are happening for Fantasy Springs. Basically, this was a way to regulate people being able to go into the Fantasy Springs ride since they were so new. This land only came out in 2024. And so this was just like basically a lottery system to guarantee you were able to go wait in a standby line to get on these rides.
So the reason we bring this one up, it's not really a fast pass in the traditional sense. What it's used for is to control the flow of traffic, not just to rides, but they'll use it for merchandise shops. So when new merchandise drops, they reopen this just to get into those stores. It's not really like a way to skip the line, but when you're in the mobile app, it's listed in the same area. Yeah. So that's why we're mentioning it.
And then the last one is called an entry request. And this is also free, but it's used for shows. So there are certain shows at these parks that are super, super high demand, and even some that you can't even get into just by showing up and waiting in a standby line, even if you wanted to wait hours for it. Some of these, you literally have to get one of these entry requests in order to be permitted.
And these are legitimate lottery. Like it's not first come, first serve. You make an entry request and you'll find out if you got it or not right there on the spot. But it is like a legitimate dice roll. It's not because you were late or slow or any of that stuff.
So to recap, just before we go into even more detail, you have the 40th anniversary pass that is free and for certain rides. You have the Premier paid pass that is paid per ride, the cost depends on that ride and it's only for certain ones. You have the standby pass, which will be used to basically grant you access to wait in a line for something, whether it be a shop or a ride. And then you have the entry request, which is a lottery request that is free for certain shows. So again, you can book one of each of these kinds of passes when you enter the park. I mean, you don't have to, but to optimize your time, I would definitely recommend doing that. And then something that's very different from the US parks. In the US parks, if you're using the Lightning Lane system, you have to wait 2 hours before you can book a new Lightning Lane or use your Lightning Lane. In this system, yes, you could use your Lightning Lane and then get a new one. You could also wait an hour, so it's half the amount of time that you have to wait in the US to book a new one when you have one booked. But the very key difference is you can also book a new one when your window starts. So if you get into the park at 8:45 a.m. and you book a FastPass for Frozen at 9:30, that's less than an hour after. But at 9:30, if you haven't used that FastPass yet, you can go in and book another one because your window has started. You are technically able to use that FastPass.
Understanding that gives you such a huge advantage, right? The important keyword there is when the window starts.
Yeah.
You do not have to check in, you don't have to scan your code. It's just when that time ticks and flips over, you're immediately eligible for a new FastPass. I find it super helpful being able to fill your gaps in your time with the paid fast passes. So when the 40th anniversary passes are going to run out
because they're free.
They're free.
Everyone will use them.
What we ended up doing was we booked our 40th immediately. Each park has a ride on the 40th that's worth booking right away with that. And hitting those open windows, if you're torn between riding two rides, take the one with the earlier time frame, because when that time rolls around, if it's less than an hour away, you're going to be able to book another one even sooner. So most people are waiting their hour or waiting until they're scanning in. Take advantage of the open time slot window.
I did want to just put in a point about the multiple times that you can ride rides with this. And that is because at Disneyland and Disney World, you can only ride that ride via that FastPass system once per day.
Yeah.
When you go in rope drop, not very many people are around. So you can usually get through 4 or 5 rides in the first couple hours of the park and then get breakfast. And then you want to start using your fast passes. And so if in the US parks, we wouldn't book a fast pass until maybe 11, 12 o'clock.
Yeah. But at this park, I'm booking the soonest one possible because it unlocks
you can use them as many times. And that's kind of the key thing too, is like if you have certain rides that you're super, super excited about, and they're either on the 40th pass or on the paid pass, you could book Indiana Jones and then ride Indiana Jones and then do it again and again until they sell out. Like, I find that so refreshing, and that's one of the really big differences.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things me and my fellow old Disneyland heads would really miss about the Fast Pass and Max Pass. If you guys remember Max Pass, if you were savvy with a cell phone, man, you could blast through. You could ride Haunted Mansion like 6 times in a row and skip the line because you were able to actually do that. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of controversy about fast passes in general because of the way they clog up the standby lines and all that stuff. And those are all valid too. I'm just saying, if the fast pass system's going to exist, I wish it would just let me ride the rides I want to ride as many times as I want to ride them. And their system lets you do that.
Well, and it's not forcing you, like with the Lightning Lane system in the US parks, it's basically saying you have 1 slot per ride per day. So you feel like even if you don't particularly enjoy a certain ride as much as a different ride, you feel like you need to ride it because you want to get your money's worth out of your Lightning Lane. Whereas with this system, it's like a choose your own adventure. And so you can say, I want to ride Indiana Jones 3 times, or I want to ride, Journey 3 times. I want to pay to ride Journey 3 times. And you don't have to necessarily then go ride Midway Mania because you're like, yeah, I don't really care about that.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the other things to know about the 40th pass in particular, that's the one that is going to interest the most people, right? Because it doesn't cost anything. Now, knowing that it does run out, you're only going to get to utilize the 40th pass like 2 or 3 times in a day. So understand which rides are available on that and prioritize them, because what ended up happening for us was we did our 3 rides. But then I started tinkering with it, and we were able to squeeze out like a 4th ride, and we had reservations for a 4th ride. And now if we had other stuff pop up, so we ended up not using it. But if we had done that, there was still enough time in the day where I could have tinkered again and maybe gotten a 5th ride out of it. So it's worth, if you have downtime or you're standing in a line or whatever, it's worth refreshing that, even if you don't have one. Now, my biggest pet peeve with all their fast pass, the paid fast pass and the 40th pass, was that you can't change your time slot. So I did this with the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'm spam refreshing. I saw 20,000 pop up. We hadn't done it yet, so I booked it as fast as I could. It ended up at a time slot during, I believe, Sea of Dreams. And so obviously we weren't going to do that because we paid for the pass. So we weren't physically going to be able to go and do that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What bothered me about it was normally at the Disneyland California one, I would just hit modify and spam refresh there and change my time slot to another one. You can't do that here. You have to straight up cancel the one you have, and then you can go back to spam refreshing. It straight up won't let you even
See, you can't even see what is available.
You physically can't see what's available. That really bothered me because I didn't want to throw away the 20,000 leagues in case, Sea of Dreams didn't happen or something. We had something we could do. But no, you got to throw it back and then start spam refreshing again. See something else pop up, boom, lock it in as fast as seemingly possible. Then evaluate the time, see where it fits in your schedule. And then we had to do that a few times. And I think you can tinker and get maybe if you're really good at it, like I've had a lot of experience tinkering in the apps to get fast passes. I do it constantly at Disneyland. I think at most you're probably going to get like 4 or 5 in a day.
Yeah.
So that and to me that feels really lucky. Most people I think get 1 or 2.
Yeah, he was. I mean, legitimately, I have a lot of experience doing this as well, and he was seeing things pop up that I couldn't even get to pop up on my phone too. Like they were just going so fast because so many people were trying to get them.
It's super. It was way harder than tinkering at Disneyland or Disney World by far. I felt like I was in like a pro competition for locking these in. Unfortunately, I locked in quite a few of them, but don't count on it. Don't bank on it because it's ridiculously competitive, and your internet connection is probably not going to be as good as the locals too. There's no Wi-Fi in the parks. There's Wi-Fi at the front gates, but not throughout the entire park like there is at Disneyland and Disney World. So that's something else to keep in mind. You're also at a disadvantage in that sense. So
well, yeah, if you have a cell phone provider that does not, and you do not have international plan, you need to get an eSIM for Japan because using Google Maps to get around, even if you're going to use the subway, is extremely helpful. So just keep that in mind.
There's a lot of nuances in what's under the 40th and what's in the paid FastPass.
Well, and it changes too. So even though we say something in this video, make sure you double check before you go so that you know kind of which rides you want to prioritize with each pass. Yeah. As far as paid passes, though, like it operates the same way, really, that it does in the U.S., other than you can book as many times as you want. But they also have paid ones for shows, which is a big difference. So for shows, again, you can do an entry request for certain indoor, like theater type shows, and that's a lottery system. And then you actually get an assigned seat, which is really cool.
Yep.
But like for parades and shows, they also have a purchasable fast pass. And that also assigns you a seat, which in the theater shows, yes, you do have assigned seats, and they were great seats. But for parades, they get you a spot on the ground that's lettered and numbered. And depending on the show and how big the venue is, you will have different sections you can choose from. One day, I actually didn't get to choose my section, but I got the perfect spot. The other day, I got to choose a section, and then I ended up a little further back. So just keep that in mind as you're purchasing these. If the show is like your number one priority to book when you get in and you want to make sure you get like a front row at a parade or something, book that first before a paid fast pass, or have one person in your party do for a ride and then have one person do it for the show. But yeah, just keep in mind that they do give you an actual assigned spot. So it was really nice to not have to roll up till about like 5 minutes before the thing. And the cast member shows you exactly where you're supposed to be sitting. It is sitting on the ground for the most part, if you're in a parade or an outdoor show. So just make sure that you bring like a little blanket or whatever. One really great thing about that is everybody is very respectful. Nobody was like up on their heels or sitting in a seat that they may have brought, or it was raining at one point. Everybody had their umbrellas down, even though we were all getting soaking wet. The shows are really great and are available on the FastPass system. So just make sure you know if that's something that you want to prioritize as well. And you may have to have multiple people when you get into the park going for different things.
Both parks do now have the marked locations on the ground. And I think it is actually worth, if you have time, to kind of scope out where your spot's going to be, if you can, before the showtime does happen. Like at some point throughout the day before.
We just walked past ours on accident. And I was like, oh, that's where we're going to sit later.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to do that only because if you don't like where you're going to be, you can kind of bail on that plan and maybe consider standing off to the side somewhere else with like the regular crowd or something like that. Because I could see if there were several rows back on the Believe Sea of Dreams behind us, where if I had been sitting in one of those, I wouldn't have liked the show as much. So I think if you're a stickler for the shows like I am, and having a good spot is really important, I think it's worth scoping out where you would be. I don't really want to stand around, so having a spot to sit was kind of cool to me, and I think it was actually pretty much worth whatever the cost
Well,
was. So
and when you also take into account what we said earlier about the people waiting in lines, people do legitimately go and put their blanket and like sit in a spot all day for a show or
yeah,
a parade. And it happened not just one person, two people,
no,
it
no, no,
was
no.
a
There's
lot
yeah,
of people. And it is
they rope drop seats
yeah.
for the parade that wasn't happening for like 6 hours.
And it is behind the area that will be for the paid fast pass people. Yeah, if you're just planning on bailing or not doing that and the show is very important to you, you may be very, very far back. Or you may have to get like an extreme side view, which may be okay with you.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of take that into account.
You're going to have an amazing time, right? It's going to be as good as you're willing to make it. If you're willing to be flexible, or you're cool with just absorbing park atmosphere, you love some of there's a lot of rides with no wait times at all. Shandu, you can ride this 5 times and have an amazing day. There's a million different ways to have an incredible day at Tokyo Disney Sea. Don't let the planning of this deter you. It's a great time. It feels overwhelming because all this information is coming to you all at once, but just break it down individually.
Yeah, and so we've given you a lot of information, but there's actually going to be even more information coming to you guys. We have a recap video for each of the parks. So we'll have one for Tokyo Disneyland and one for Tokyo Disney Sea that kind of gives you some of our first impressions of what we were most excited for before we went, some of them as we were going throughout our day, kind of a vlog type format, and then some recaps of how we think our experiences went with even more detail about exactly what we did and a breakdown, so you can kind of get even more detail about how our experience went. But we also have one other really important announcement, and that is that we are going to be doing a giveaway. As part of this trip, we found a lot of really unique merchandise items, as well as some things included with vacation package or some things from hotels that are really niche and unique. And we wanted to put just a little thank you together for anybody who stuck with this video this long, and just us in general. We really appreciate all the subscribers that have come and that you value our content. We hope that we're making good content for you. So to thank you for that, we're going to be doing a little gift basket giveaway. All you have to do is you have to be subscribed to our channel, and then you need to comment on any of our videos in the next month. And we will then do a drawing and announce a winner at that time and reach out and get the address. So again, we won't give you exact details of what's in that giveaway because we want to keep it a little bit of a fun surprise for the person that gets it. But they are very much Tokyo Disney themed. So if that's your kind of thing, make sure you enter the giveaway.
I was pretty excited about it. I think it's fun. It's not anything too crazy, but I think it's a pretty cool basket. And we really can't do what we do without the help from you guys.
Obviously, we gave you a lot of information in this video, but if you do have any other questions specific about Tokyo Disney Resort, hotels, anything like that, we will have a lot of videos coming out about this topic, but feel free to ask us questions in the comments. Reach out to us on Instagram. We are happy to give you any more information. I also love vacation planning, so if you want my opinion and want my help trying to figure out the best things to do, I'm more than happy to jump in. Just reach out and let us know.
I know that this topic in particular is extremely stressful and so overwhelming and changing so fast. And we're staying up with that kind of stuff because we want to do this again. So we're constantly watching on what's changing about Tokyo Disney and the Disney company as a whole. So we really want to help you guys out. If you have any questions, seriously, we're not just looking for engagement. We're willing to help you guys out.
And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content from us, please like the video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube if you're not already. And again, that's one way that you get entered into that giveaway. But for now, I'm Rachel.
And I'm David.
And we hope this video helped you find the right direction for your next adventure.
Bye.
Bye.